All right, everybody, just wanted to set the stage. It is happy May the 4th. May the 4th be with you. I'm a huge Star Wars fan, so we're probably going to throw some Star Wars references in tonight. And I think Matt and Geri are Star Wars fans too, so hopefully there'll be some little places where they can interject some of those jokes. Hope everybody's having a good night. Thanks for joining us on Talking Trout. We've got with the upcoming of the inland regular season opening up this weekend, we thought it would be a great time to talk about stream etiquette. You know, I think the streams are going to get a little more crowded starting Saturday, and so we got we asked our friends Mat and Geri from the Driftless Angler to come on and talk a little bit about stream etiquette. So they've got some interesting perspectives as fly shop owners. You know, they're kind of they hear it from both sides. So they hear the angler issues, and then they also hear, you know, from, you know, the DNR and the landowner perspectives, the issues that they're having with anglers too. So with that, we're super excited to have you on, Mat and Geri, and I'm going to turn the stage over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you for having us. Appreciate that. And I request that every time I walk into a room, that music plays from now on. It was perfect. Good introduction music. As introduced, Geri, Mat, the owners of the Driftless Angler down in Viroqua, Wisconsin. We see a lot of familiar faces out there. Thank you all for coming tonight. This speech is one that's important to give, but we also don't really love to give it. We're not trying to be preachy with this speech. As Mike had said, we've been here now 16 years, and we hear concerns from landowners, we hear concerns from locals, we hear concerns from anglers, you know, et cetera, all across the board. So just trying to compile some ideas and have some sort of reminders, especially coming into opening weekend. Everybody knows that the week preceding this weekend and Saturday is just an absolute zoo and a mess out there. So just kind of some reminders, gentle reminders, a couple of stories of bad behavior and maybe how to cure it, et cetera. So again, we're not trying to sound preachy with this stuff. We just want to be able to give some good information to anglers that have never fished the driftless before and people who've been doing it for decades and decades.
Possibly a way to avoid maybe some confrontations, because I think we all are probably really tired of confrontation after the last 3 years, 2.5 anyway, of, you know, that constant like having to confront someone or being confronted, and this is maybe a way of sparing some of that. So,
okay, couple of clicks through, and we'll start the slideshow here. Okay, one more. I promise I know what I'm doing. Not really. Okay, so fishing etiquette. Our head guy Pete always calls it fishing friendly, so we decided to steal that term from him. Angling etiquette for the driftless and beyond. So the one thing to always remember is it seems that crowds are cyclical. You know, it'll get really, really crowded in a certain spot, and then 2 or 3 years it kind of drops back down, and then people discover it again and gets really, really crowded. But in terms of the main crowds right now, we're kind of at a peak due to COVID. When COVID hit, people couldn't go and do anything, couldn't go to movie theaters, you know, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. A lot of people went outdoors. Blessing and a curse for sure. We had a lot of people who went outdoors and followed the rules, respectful to landowners. Unfortunately, the flip side of that coin, there are a lot of people because of COVID and even into the time we're in now that went outdoors because it was the only thing to do, and they didn't care. They knew that they'd be able to go do whatever else they wanted when things kind of calmed down. So they didn't necessarily make a good impression on landowners, locals, anglers, et cetera, and it gave a lot of people a bad name there. So just keep in mind, we're talking kind of worst case scenario stuff. And again, we're not trying to be preachy with this, just trying to give some information. So first thing, when you're getting to a spot, everybody's excited. You see fish rising. We're finally going to see some caddis hatch, hopefully here in the next couple of days now that it's warm-ish. But you're looking over and seeing a bunch of rising fish. You know not to just drive off the road, hop over a fence and go fishing. You have to kind of put some thought and make sure we're all playing by the rules there. The first one, and we see this all the time, make sure you're able to safely pull completely off the road. It can be just off the road and pull your mirrors in, but with the amount of traffic that we get, our small rural roads, blind curves, heavy equipment, et cetera, being on the road is a danger to yourself, other vehicles, all kinds of different stuff.
And if you're trying to get as close to as you can to a stile, and figure, all right, there's like a ditch right here, and I don't want to go into the ditch. Well, guess what? That is still rude to begin with. Right in front of a stile really is not proper etiquette. So, pull 10 yards and then get off the road if that's where that ditch is no longer as severe. So that's one thing that I think we see a lot of people do, is that perhaps they just maybe don't want to walk a little bit farther. And if you have somebody that is unable, or, because I understand that too, perhaps drop them off right at the stile and then pull, however 100 yards or whatever it takes to make sure and properly pull off the side of the road.
Yeah, it's definitely not necessary to jump from the passenger side seat over the stile. You don't have to park right there. Make sure that you're all the way off, make sure it's safe, make sure you're not blocking any entrances, et cetera, et cetera. That gets into our second point. Don't block anything. We have a lot of people who will block driveways to begin with, which that's pretty obvious there. Any kind of stream ford where the driver, the farmer, the landowner has access via the river there. You'll see there's a dip. Don't block that as well. Gates is obvious. A lot of people like to park near gates because it's a safe kind of visual thing for them to remember where their vehicle is or something like that. But those are access points. So for landowners and locals to get in and out of certain areas. And don't drive through a gate because it's open. And that doesn't mean that it's open to you. It doesn't mean it's access. If you're not positive that it's public, don't drive through a gate.
And there are actual access roads that I think people don't understand, that is a road that farmers use with their equipment, and they feel like, okay, because it doesn't look like an actual road, it's not gravel, it's not paved, there's no marking, but when you see 2 tire marks and it looks like it is traveled frequently in some kind of farmland, definitely do not block that, and I've seen people park in it, drive through, and assuming that because there is access that they can drive to, that they can drive to the stream. I sincerely have seen it more than once. So again, and if you see somebody do it, I don't want, again, to encourage confrontation, but maybe if you're chit-chatting, say, hey, I don't want you to get in trouble, but FYI, yeah, you can, this is technically trespassing, whatever, but that way we're all, being stewards. So
yeah, explaining that you could get ticketed for this, be careful. The sheriff's going to come by and take a look at cars, or the warden, whoever, or just say, hey, if a landowner sees your car here, they're going to push it with their front end loader and move it out of the way. You might want to move it, kind of make it a joke there. Next point is no parking lots. We've had situations where, especially with guides, is a guide would park at an access point, somebody else would pull right behind them, somebody else would pull right in front of them, and it gets this conglomeration of 4 or 5 cars at an access point. In the driftless, we're lucky enough that the general rule of thumb, because we have so much water, if there's a car at an access point, you can move to a different spot, upstream, downstream, one valley over to a different river. So 1 car access per spot is the general rule of thumb. Maybe 2 if you can check in with the angler. We'll get into that a little bit later. The only true exception to that are the true parking lots. There are not a lot of them here, but Bob Jackson on the Timber Coulee is an example. That can fit 3 or 4 cars. The expectation is there are going to be 3 or 4 anglers there. It's well marked, et cetera, et cetera.
And next, if someone is at your spot, and we put that in quotations, move to another or wait until they're done. This one, and I do understand for those people that, it takes a while to get here. And, I've just been waiting to fish Bohemian. And County Road H at the Old Mill is my favorite spot. And that's the place I always want to fish, at 10 a.m. on opening day, or at 10 a.m. on September 18th or whatever. This is one thing that I always say, and I think this myself, if somebody is there, I don't park there and I think, damn it, I should have gotten there earlier. That's just it. This is, if somebody is there, it is sincerely better etiquette to go to another spot, or, you know, sit on your phone, play a game, pull your chair out and just relax until they're done. It makes for much better fishing if we let somebody have that spot, because they're not going to be there very long. It doesn't take us a whole lot of time to move through the water here, right? It's pretty small. We're always moving. We're always walking. So, you know, that's just one of those things in a perfect world that if we all did, you know, if we kind of waited our turn, I think we would have less conflict.
And the other part of it is, if somebody's at your spot or your river, it forces you to go to a different fishery, find something new. It could be better, it could be worse, just something different. You might find another spot, you know, a hidden spot, a secret spot. So it's never a bad idea to get out and explore there. Another point is, especially on the country roads, the county roads, the dirt roads, is drive slowly. You don't have to zip 70, 80 miles per hour from point A to point B to get to that next hot spot. You're not going to miss the hatch, et cetera, et cetera. There are all kinds of considerations. If you've been in our area and fished, you know we have these really windy roads with lots of hills and curves and blind corners and stuff. Milk trucks, they're either driving pretty fast at you, or they're stopped or slowed down. All kinds of utility trucks, combines, big farm equipment, especially in the spring and fall during planting and harvest there. We have a very large Amish population in our area as well. And if you're coming around something at 15, 20, 30 miles per hour that still seems pretty slow, and there's an Amish buggy in the middle of the 2-track or the small dirt road, that's still kind of scary there. So just be very careful, drive slowly. In the summertime, when the roads are very dry, is you can kick up a ton of dust too, which isn't going to necessarily affect you personally. But if there are people walking, people biking, you know, homeowners on the side of the road that get dust thrown at their house all the time, again, just slow down a little bit, enjoy the scenery, and you'll still get there, and the fish will still be there for you.
And then the last one is park. And this is, again, a suggestion. We're not finger wagging saying you have to do it. But again, if we could get everybody to do this, it would kind of get some of the guesswork out of where other people are fishing. So we suggest that you park on the side of the bridge that you are fishing. So if the bridge is, so right side is going to be downstream. If you park on that right side, it means you are walking down, fishing up the lower side of the bridge. If you park on the upper side, it means you're fishing from the bridge up. This is just one thing that we would like to kind of get started and have it catch on. So that way, you know, you don't have to get out and walk a quarter of a mile to go find out where the person is. We can just maybe safely make assumptions if it becomes something that everybody does. So park upper side is meaning you're going upstream. Lower side means you're going down and fishing up, typically. And some people do fish down, but I would say the majority of us do fish up. All
right. Access and the landowners. This one's kind of big, and it's really come up again with COVID and the overcrowding of creeks during that time frame, and the continued interest in the outdoors. You know, a lot of goofy stuff happened. The first thing that we found, and they get better each year, and they're great tools to use, but don't put 100% faith in any application or book, map book of any kind. Again, they're good. They're not always updated. Sometimes they're not accurate. We've had, you know, many stories of landowners saying somebody came onto my property, walked through my field, trespassed, and showed me their phone or showed me a book where it was marked as public and it's not public. So again, just make sure you're always aware of what's public, what's private as best as you can. That dovetails perfectly into respect landowners. You know, don't trespass. They won't forgive you for trespassing. You know, don't walk on somebody's property. Don't cross somebody's field. There's no reason to do it, and all that's going to do is eventually lose us angler access, you know, landowner trust, and all that good stuff. Now, there's no really reason to do it. Even if you know you could be trespassing and might have met the landowner once or twice and they've given you permission, you know, ask, hey, do you remember me? I was here last year. I just want to make sure it's still okay if I cross this property. Or if you see somebody checking their mail, you know, don't bug them, don't badger them, but say, hello, my name's so-and-so. I'm from here. I really like the look of the creek behind your barn, behind your house, whatever it may be. Is there any way that you would give me permission to access that creek? No, just be nice. You know, treat other people like you would want to be treated there.
All right, sorry. And the next is don't wander. Sorry, that is my dog. Don't wander, and meaning when you cross a stile or you go in at a bridge, go directly to the water. Do not meander around. Don't walk through the field. That's a biggie, and I think we're going to touch on that later. But if you have an access, and you're usually going to be able to see where it is. You're going to see that it's a footpath. You're going to see others have been there because there's nowhere in the drift list that others have not been. So walk along the path that you see. Go directly to the water. Do not, go pick flowers or don't go look at something. We're given this access, and it is basically a gift from these landowners. Well, I guess maybe not a gift. They're getting something too, but in any case, it can be revoked too. So in again, being good stewards, just use it as it is meant, which is getting us directly to the water so we can fish.
We had a handshake agreement on an unnamed creek in our area that the landowner for the last couple of years, across here, it was signed. It wasn't a public sign, but it said anglers use this and follow this path. And people were veering off that path to go pet the landowner's horses.
Oh, yeah.
Signs were pulled, gates went up, no trespassing signs went up. Again, don't wander around. Your access means access to the water there. And
again, I didn't follow up with the no picnics. And I've been guilty of this too during the guide trip. We'd sit and have our lunch, and after I think Matt mentioned others, I'm like, oh my gosh, really? That's not what this is for. So now we have lunches in our cars, or we'll go to a picnic area or whatever. But so we no longer do that, and I'm glad I finally understood that that's really not what we're doing. No mushroom hunting. You can unless you go get permission from the landowner, which I think most are probably pretty agreeable. Maybe not about morels, but
yeah, not about morels,
but other things. So yeah, again, just in knowing. We have these access, it's hunting and fishing, and that is what they are meant for, not, picnics and mushroom hunting. So, and not going to the bathroom, and you probably,
we'll get on. Yeah. There's the next point, and I meant to amend this next one that says close the gate. If you get access onto a piece of property, private property typically, or through a park or something, if you come to a closed gate and you have access there, open the gate, drive through, close the gate behind you. If you come to an access point and the gate is open, drive through and do not close the gate. If the gate is closed, close it behind you. If the gate is open, leave it open. Again, cattle moving around, vehicles, moving in and out, et cetera, et cetera. You don't know what the traffic pattern is on that gate. So whatever the landowner tells you to do, or whatever the gate has signaled for you to do, please keep that in mind.
When in doubt, check in or move. And that goes back to if you do not know if there is public access. And again, if you can get in at a bridge, we know that the water in the state of Wisconsin belongs to the people, belongs to us. So we are able to use it, and we have every right to if our feet are wet and if we are accessing it legally. So if you're going in at a bridge and you're able to keep your feet wet, absolutely do that. But if you're in doubt, don't just hop up on the bank and just think, I'm going to sneak through, the thing is somebody else is going to see you. And, again, and being stewards and we are the ones that are setting examples here, hopefully. And doing that, let's try really hard to, if we know it's private, keep our feet wet. And, or if you go and get permission from the landowner, and checking in is always a good idea anyway. You're going to win so many brownie points with pretty much almost every landowner is going to appreciate that. And they all say that. So, yeah.
Next point kind of goes back to the don't wander. The legal definition, give or take, of a conservation easement is 30 plus feet from the center line of the creek. So roughly on most of our creeks, you get about 6 feet of bank. So when you have fished all day long and you have to walk back the vehicle, you can't cut. Don't cut corners. Stay within that easement. Make sure that you're actually legal and on public property. That's kind of a big deal because, again, as you start wandering out, you're on private property. If you haven't gotten permission, especially now, landowners are very, very sensitive about trespassing and people abusing property. So we want to make sure, as just good human beings, but anglers as well, is that we follow the letter of the law and don't give them an excuse to be grumpy at anglers at this point.
After the flood, it was amazing. The major flood 3 years ago, right? 3 September
2018. Yeah.
After that flood, it was amazing how many landowners came into the shop or called or told us that they had never seen. So all of those fences were blown over by water, and people, I don't know, they just lost their minds. And maybe they were dodging piles of trees, or, you know, I don't know what, but they were going over fence lines. They were just walking wherever they wanted. And of course we know, you know, when it's a field, you know, if you're in somebody's backyard. So that was one thing, especially that we kind of, I mean, there may have been other reasons, but I don't think any of them were good enough to, you know, walk through somebody's backyard. That's just unacceptable. So yeah, those, even in other conditions, this still, we know better. So we need to do better.
You get one do instead of a do not here. Make sure that in some way, shape, or form, thank landowners. Little gestures go a really, really long way. Little gifts in the mailbox, just simple thank yous, what can I do, et cetera, whatever you want to do. Give them a Christmas card at Christmas time. If you have a landowner who gives you permission, that really, really goes a long way for the trust between landowners and anglers, and a long way towards just that relation in general, which is very, very important in especially small towns, small communities like we have here. Next point, your dog is not guaranteed access. Actually, most conservation easements, especially on the county level, have it written in that dogs aren't allowed because of the cattle in this area, et cetera, et cetera. So please, if you don't know or you haven't gotten your permission again, don't take your dogs on conservation easements. They can, as well trained as your dog may or may not be in the case of ours, they may run off into the woods, they may chase cattle, they may splash, do something. So just please don't take your dogs fishing with you unless you are 1,000% sure that you are allowed to there. Already went over the picnic thing. Just again, goes to wandering. Stick within our little corridor that we're allowed to do, and make sure that you're in the know there.
I think do not mess with fences. I think that one pretty much everybody knows. We all know better.
That's another story that an unnamed campground may or may not have lost access to a certain section of Tributary Creek because the landowner accused an angler of actually cutting or messing with the fence post or cutting the fence. Cattle got loose. Might be true, might not be true, but that was the landowner's perception. And we actually have heard landowners that have visibly seen anglers breaking fence, cutting fence so they can get over it, under it, whatever it may be. So again, just don't mess with landowners' fences. If it looks like it's strung across illegally, don't talk to the landowner and get in their face about it. If you can't get through a fence, you can't get through a fence, go to another spot. And if you do think it's illegal, you can always call the warden and say, hey, I think this is fenced illegally, and there might need to be an access point at this creek.
And it sincerely does happen. I've seen it happen. We've seen it happen many times, especially fencing up to bridges. They legally are not allowed to fence directly to a bridge. You have to have access on each side of the bridge. I've seen that many times. The other one I've seen is on the top of the stile, stringing a hot wire. I've seen that a few times, up where you can't actually get over a stile. It typically gets fixed pretty quickly, but you certainly should call Shauna or call someone and notify them as soon as you see it.
Last point on the landowner, leave livestock alone. Even if the cows come up and are curious at you, don't try to ride them, don't try to tip them, don't take selfies with them. It's that those are part of the landowner's property there. They actually are allowed to move around in creeks in most cases. So don't mess with cows. You're not going to go out there and play cowboy and chase them around and try to corral them back somewhere. Just let them be, leave them alone. Sometimes they can actually be beneficial if they're upstream enough and kick up a little dirt cloud and a couple of extra bugs. The Wisconsin version of the San Juan Shuffle is always good. So, but yeah, don't mess with cows. No reason to do that.
And most of this again is stuff that we all know. Everybody here knows this. I think more than anything is when we start talking about it more, it can be conversation for each of us. And so when I'm with that next newbie who is here for the first time, I'm able to go over this, as is hopefully all of you. We can all have this conversation with people that we bring here for the first time, or even maybe somebody who's been here quite a while and just didn't know. I mean, there's many things, I talk to people all the time that say, oh my gosh, I never knew that. I'm so glad. So hopefully this is just kind of the start of our conversation where we can all maybe find something common to talk about, with the rest of the people that we bring in, the new people.
So we've got getting to the stream, the driving, how to park properly, stay off the road, etc. We've got access issues, public, private, landowner permission, all that good stuff. Now, what do we do when we're on the creek and there are other anglers there as well? First thing to do, again, is we have enough water here that we can move. Even if there's somebody on the creek that we love, there are 65 plus or minus creeks just in Vernon County in the Driftless here, so plenty of places to spread out. If not, check in with them, wait a little bit, whatever you can do, but just don't crowd there. The second point is fish upstream. Again, this is just a suggestion, but if everybody and most anglers do at this point, fly anglers, if you're fishing upstream, then everybody kind of knows the flow of traffic there. So if you're fishing upstream, you expect that from you to the next bridge or the next access point, whatever it may be, is going to be free and clear and yours. And the person who gets in with a vehicle parked on that upstream side sees the angler upstream. Do you mind if I fish behind you? They know that they're also fishing upstream and not jumping up above them there.
One thing I will say, and I think a lot of people have this in mind, is that it's okay to hop in front of somebody if I go far enough up. And in some ways that could be true. But I personally, I don't do that. I think none of the guides do that. Of course, sometimes you don't know who's behind you. And so, you may get in at a style and somebody's already walked all the way up and you're not meaning to, but you've gone in legally and you've gone in earnest, not trying to high hole somebody. But the thing is if you say, okay, I'm just going to go up I'm going to go up 2 holes above you. Well, I'm going to go through, especially if there's nothing happening in this hole, I'm going to get up to that next one pretty darn quickly. And having fished in front of me is going to shut it down. And so my day's basically over. And in fairness, I got there first. So it's kind of not real fair play. And I've had people come in and say, oh, I'm going to go way up there. I'm going to go way up there. And I'm there in 10 minutes. And they're fishing in the hole that I was intending on fishing. And I was going slowly because, I knew there was going to be a hatch happening in a few minutes or something, whatever. But the fact is when you say, oh, I'm going to go a long way, I'm going to go way up there. Most of the time, I think most anglers maybe meant it when they said it, but then, oh, damn it, I just saw some fish rising. I'm going to go down to the hole and I'm going to start fishing. So in that case, I think it's just kind of not very good pool, quite honestly. I think that this is kind of our conversation. And I've had instances where somebody said, I'm going to just go up above. And I say, no, you can go down behind and you can fish behind us. If I'm going to leave soon or if we're almost done, I will always say that. Oh, no, we're almost done. If you don't mind, we want to make it up to that oak right there in the corner. If you don't mind starting there, or if you want to wait a bit, we're going to be done. So those kind of conversations, they tend to, not always, but they tend to end up going well. Again, if you're kind, there have been times when I haven't been. There have been times when I've just been pissed and a jerk, and it doesn't end well. But, and I can say maybe everybody's had that same situation, but the best way to do it is to just not high hole, not fish in front of somebody.
That's with all other anglers, that's kind of the end all and be all main rule is don't high hole. That's why we have it bolded there. So, moving, if there's somebody at a spot, you move. Fishing upstream is you're making sure that you're following that flow of traffic and not passing and trying to cut anybody off. Don't crowd other anglers. Again, that's the same deal as we have enough access here that just because you wanted plan A and plan B, sometimes you have to go to C, D, and E to find open water to yourself or something new there. And checking in while you can. As Geri mentioned, the key to getting along, especially with other anglers, is communication. Now, if you walk up and you didn't see somebody around the corner, go, oh, shoot, I'm really sorry. I'm going to head back down. How far are you fishing, whatever it may be. And then just talk fishing, too. It doesn't have to be, I need to go here, you go here. Say, how's the fishing, et cetera there. So, one idea that we've been kicked around in a couple of TU groups, I believe it was out of Chicago, had him at some point, is even if you just have like a little 3x5 card, one side you write in big Sharpie upstream, one side you write in Sharpie downstream, and just put it on your dashboard so that angler, whoever's there following or wants to fish one way or the other, can see, hey, this person's upstream, I'm going to go on the other side of the bridge and leave them alone type deal. Again, that's just one of those try not to crowd other people people, and information. Let people know where you are, and they, you won't have the surprises of somebody walking up on you.
Yeah. Okay. So no peeking.
The peeking one. This is something that we've
Oh,
run.
yeah.
Sorry,
Oh,
this
yeah,
is something
yeah.
we've run into, especially again. That what a very frustrating situation when you're guiding is you have a client casting for fish on a bank, and somebody starts walking up on the bank that you're fishing, and you're in your brain going, please no, stop, please turn around, and they'll stand right above the hole that you're fishing. Your client's fishing. Hey, how's the fishing? Oh, do you see them swimming down there? You're gonna catch a ton type deal. So when you have that conversation, or you see that other angler out there and you want to check in, make sure they're done fishing a spot, or you're not standing up on the high bank staring down into the hole that they were just fishing. Give them a little bit of space, say hey from far away. Just make sure that you don't get too close and ruin the spot they're fishing while you're actually trying to do something good and check in there.
I think most fly anglers are well aware of this one. That one typically happens, in fact, the day before opener is when we all usually have
the
that.
people scouting the water.
And they're nice as can be,
They're
but
so
just
nice.
like, hey, how's it? You're like, oh. Anyway, all right. So that's next was be generous with knowledge, lend a helping hand, netting, etc. Though just last week I had some ladies out, and it was that situation where we got to our spot early, and somebody had seen our cars, and he went down to the stile below us, which was pretty far. And he hauled it, and he came up, and we had fished in the upper section, kind of waiting for a hatch to happen. And we did see some midges. We went downstream to the area that I was kind of saving, and he came around the corner, and I just thought, oh man, because I'm the one that felt like a dirtbag, because I knew our car was there first. We were the first car on the whole stream. But still, basically, and I just walked up to him like, I'm so sorry. It probably seems like we're high-holing you. And he said, no, I saw your cars. And all we did was we just started talking to him and kind of invited him to fish with us. He hung out for just a couple minutes. I gave him a couple flies, and then he said, okay, can I go up above you? And I said, absolutely, we're stopping, blah, blah, blah. And I told him where we were stopping, and it made things so much nicer. He was cool, we were cool, and it doesn't always work that way, but handing somebody flies, that's a good trick. Or if I have an extra map, or I say, okay, here's a great spot, and there wasn't a car there. Maybe if you have that knowledge, you can set somebody up, to fish somewhere else.
Yep,
So.
help them find that next hot spot, so they don't have to go only to one spot each time.
And flies that are working, that helps too.
So one of the things that when we're talking about etiquette, respect, whatever it may be, sometimes people will overlook the natural side of things, the nature side of things there. Again, these are just fairly simple, so we won't spend too much time on them. First one, obvious, don't litter. It's always a good idea just to grab stuff instead. A landing net makes a perfect temporary trash basket on your walk out there. So any kind of tippet material, food wrappers, whatever it may be, if you can pick it up and take it back, please do. Landowners love that. That's a great way to get access to private water, other water. It's a great way to keep landowner access when you're hauling out some litter there.
Leave spotted fish on. That's just a duh. We know that. But,
Yep, and that one doesn't necessarily apply to our area because brook trout and brown trout, they close the season for spawning, which is excellent. So, but yeah, don't walk over beds, don't walk over actively spawning fish. Just kind of let them do their thing.
We know that. All of us know that. But that's one that especially for younger kids, college kids, anybody coming in new to TU, these are all things that certainly are important for us to pass on that information to others. Handling fish with care, again, same thing. Everybody knows it. We all know this. Everybody in this, everybody right now knows this on this Zoom call. But again, just something going over fish handling with somebody who's new, or maybe you see somebody struggling and you can maybe walk up and go, hey, how about this? This is what we do. This is what I do. You don't have to say you should, but saying this is what I do oftentimes is just a great way to teach. So
the no bankside photos is, as a fly shop, we get a ton of people's fish pictures, and 99% of the time they're great, and people taking at least some amount of care of the fish. The ones that are really, really difficult and that we have to get into a polite conversation with people is when they actually put their fish on the grass with their rod, try to frame it and shoot it, and that fish has been out of the water, it's struggling to breathe. You've handled it, it's rolling around in the grass and the dirt. It's just not healthy healthy for the fish in any way, shape, or form. So we ask that you please, please, please don't do the bankside photo of any fish there.
And again, just information to pass on to if you know, you're fishing with somebody, see somebody anyway.
Yeah.
Trying to retrieve snag flies, that is just, I didn't realize how important it was until the first time I saw a bird. You know, having eaten one, and that is such, oh, this just made me so sad. So that, and I think oftentimes just don't realize that, oh, if you counted all of those flies that I lost, count, you know, times how many people were on the water today, and then times 7, and then, you know, when you start adding that up, okay, so maybe those hooks are going to rust. Antron, not so much, you know, I mean, so when we think about, not to be preachy, but it's just, I hadn't even thought of it. But when I think about that pile of even just fly tying material, you know, the foam from my hippie stomper that I just lost. So if you can, yeah, and again, sometimes you just can't, sometimes you just cannot, but if possible, because there've been so many times where I'm like, hell with it. I'm, you know, I'll go back and I forget. Well, I've made it my mission now to not forget, to at least go back and exhaust all effort to retrieve my flies that I've lost. So hopefully, you know, again, just something we can all kind of get in our mind, like how much that accounts, you know, how much really litter that is with just a lost fly.
And it's, you know, unintentional litter by,
right,
you know, absolutely positively. It's not like anglers are meaning to throw stuff in the trees. But again, if you have a landowner or somebody else who's in a bad mood and super ornery and sees a chubby Chernobyl stuck in the tree, oh, those dang anglers, I'm not going to let them on my property anymore. Again, just kind of a politeness thing is clean up after yourself if it's safe and easy to do so. All right, the poo problem. This was shocking. We've had this. It happened. I would say we had 2 or 3 stories of it during COVID, but actually heard it before, which lost us another handshake agreement. To put it bluntly, we have had landowners come into the shop and say, there was an angler on my property who took a dump in my backyard. I could see every second of it. Disgusting, absolutely disgusting. Who the heck would think that that was okay? Who would do that? Hopefully it's nobody here or nobody that you know, but again, private land is private land. It's not your bathroom. The lighter side to that, and another one that kind of goes under the radar, is if somebody does their business in the woods, takes their wad of toilet paper, throws it in the woods, that's visible that, hey, somebody just pooped right there. You know, people don't want to see that. Other anglers don't want to see that. Landowners sure don't want to see that. So you have to make sure the whole leave no trace thing. If it means having a little Ziploc bag and putting your toilet paper in there and storing it away and throwing it away when you're done, awesome. That's perfect. You know, bury things, stir stuff up, cover it. You know, don't leave any trace, especially traces of that. That's terrible. Or where you're visible. I mean, and I did, and I planted the seed because I had a panic situation, and I was just going number 1 and thought I saw a trail cam, and I just panicked thinking, oh no, my big butt is now on somebody's trail cam. So be mindful of that the next time. Yes, it's not always just houses. There are trail cams everywhere. So be careful out there. And final, it's simple. We're all Trout Unlimited members. We're on, Talking Trout with Trout Unlimited right now. Give back to the fishery. That doesn't mean that you have to go out and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars or whatever, but little donations to conservation organizations, work days through Trout Unlimited, teaching and mentoring the young anglers or anglers you see streamside to make sure that they're following some of these etiquettes, some of these rules to make everybody a little bit happier there. In any way, shape, or form, these are kind of our playgrounds. We want to protect them. We want to keep them going. So as much as we can, and in any way that we can, giving back is never a bad thing. Final point, and somebody who used to work with us, always hit the point home of how close should you ever be to another angler. He would always say, I get as close to another human as I would a zombie. Well, You don't want them to turn around and come running after you and trying to eat your brain. So you keep a really long distance, a safe distance. And, that's always safe and respectful there. And then just treat other anglers as you would want to be treated. This isn't difficult. Nobody's out there trying to make your fishing week difficult or a bad thing. They might not know, if there's somebody out there that you don't go and high hole them just because you're angry. You wouldn't want them to do it to you. So again, just kind of common courtesy.
And I think, again, just hammering this point in, as much as we can have this conversation, and hopefully it doesn't sound like we're being finger shaky, and hopefully it doesn't sound, I mean, I'm sure there's probably some of it that does sound a little preachy, but if we can all have this conversation as often as possible, I think mainly, not so much, well, certainly about etiquette is what we're talking about, but I do also think the, fish handling. I think that's a huge one. I think, again, picking up after ourselves, having those conversations is also mainly protecting the resource. And I think that's probably our number one, that's our number one job, especially as members of TU. I think that's one that we need to really, if we can, pass that information on to as many people as we can, as often as we can.
So fish friendly. Be respectful to the resource, be respectful to landowners, talk to each other, talk to everybody else. And that opens so many doors. You never know when somebody's going to say, my cousin, my uncle, my brother, my wife, we own this property, you should go take a look at it. It can gain you some of the best water we've gotten access to has been just saying hi to somebody, not even in waiters, just seeing somebody at a grocery store, telling them what we do, and oh, that's really cool, and I like you guys. If you ever want to fish, here's my number, and shoot me a text message, I'll let you on the property type deal. So
I brought cookies to a few different landowners, and one of them, he still, this was 8 years ago, and he still remembers me when he thought my car was broken down one time, and he came out and was going to help me. I'm able now to park in his parking space in his driveway instead of driving on the road. These are the kind of things, just because, I went up and started BSing with them and talked to them and brought them cookies one day. And those are the kind of things that they do pay off.
So after a lot of do nots, if you haven't been here before, come into the shop. We'll help you find your way around. And we really want you to come and enjoy our fishery down in the Driftless. Okay, we're done talking.
Awesome. No, you're not. We're gonna keep you going. That was great, though. I really appreciate it. I think it was a timely conversation. We spend all winter thinking about how am I going to be a better angler, right? Like, I want to improve my fly tying, or I want to improve my casting, or I'm going to do this year. And a lot of the things that you talked about are the things that we don't talk about enough, because it's all part of the experience that we have out on the stream. So I just want to thank both of you for kind of taking the time. And it's not a glamorous topic, right? But the conversations need to happen, and especially when we have so many new people coming into the sport. Like, it's just some of these things are common sense to us, but it just makes sense to, there were things you said tonight that I thought of, like, oh, I've done that before, and like, I shouldn't be doing that, and I need to be better. And so it's just great to have all this really good refresher going into the regular season. And I know you guys touched, one of the things I wanted to mention too, the importance of all of this. And you touched on some of the easement things and the angler access that we have, but a lot of easements out there, and maybe people don't know this, that the county does, are just 20-year easements. They're not perpetual. So that means if the landowners had a bad experience, like 20 years comes up and they ask them to renew, they're going to say no if that experience hasn't been positive. And we don't want to see that happen. So thanks for bringing up a lot of these points. There were a couple of questions I'm going to ask you. Actually, some folks in the audience had for you. Let's see here. I'm just going to go back. We're going to start at the top. Jerry had a question about wires going across the stream. He said, oh, wait a sec. And, I lost my spot. Hold on a sec. So yeah, it says several times I've come across an electric wire across the stream. He asked, is it okay to wiggle under or step over these wires? You guys have any thoughts on that?
You are legally able to. Again, because if your feet are in the water, you are legal. In the state of Wisconsin, you are on your property. The water belongs to all of us. So you legally can. I never thought they could legally wire over water, but I guess they can. But you can go over or under it. You're absolutely, if your feet are wet, you're legally able to do.
Yeah, as long as it's the easy way to kind of think about this, even if you know that you're in the right, as long as you're safe and as long as you don't mess with the landowners, fencing and then, don't break it, don't change it, don't modify it. If you have to lift up a stick and get underneath and then put that stick down and it doesn't ruin the fence, that's okay.
But be careful because going under an electric wire doesn't sound good. So we're not suggesting you should.
Don't ever mess with an electric fence in water. One of our guides, our part-time guides, actually broke both of his ankles because he was in the water, grabbed onto an electric fence. It was muddy substrate, step forward, one snap, stumbled, step forward, second snap. So yes, don't mess with electric fences. It's always better to, if you can, reach out to the landowner or talk to the county. You can always call the county conservation, land and water conservation, say, I ran into this situation. I was uncomfortable. I didn't know what to do. You don't have to shake your finger and say, this landowner's not in their right, but they'll let you know kind of the etiquette and what to do. And also because you are nice, is they may reach out to that landowner and say, hey, we're getting calls from anglers that you're doing something wrong, so please fix that.
Yeah. And watch your rod once you do get past the wire, because we had a situation where all of us anglers got through, and my friend, he had his graphite rod kind of tipped behind him, and he touched the wire, and he got a pretty good zap on that one. So please be very careful. So somebody just had to mention here: bring your own firewood if you're going to the campground. Somebody had don't take down somebody's fence to.
Jeez. Why?
Firewood, unbelievable. I can't believe some of this stuff. I mean, you guys have probably heard it all, but just the story.
I've not heard that one.
It's always actually a really, really good conversation if you get to know landowners, is ask them the bad experiences they've had with trespassers. In small town, again, make sure you know them and gain their trust. But that's don't use that as your opening conversation for obvious reasons. But
we want them to forget those.
There are some good stories.
Yeah. Somebody mentioned here that he's had folks walk downstream and cut him off, and then they start fishing upstream in front of them. I would assume he's fishing downstream if that happened, but if you're gonna do that, like the obvious thing, right? You're gonna walk past somebody, just stop and ask or say something first, right?
Yeah.
I have had, and I guess I sound like I'm kind of stereotyping, but they did tend to have always been conventional anglers, do fish downstream more. And I have been caught off that way. And, honestly, that one, I'm kind of like, well, I don't want to go above you anyway, because you've already just, drug everything through that water. So that one is just kind of like, all right, later.
Yeah, cut your losses and head on to the next bridge.
Water.
And it also sounded that that could have been the situation where you're fishing from point A to point C and somebody drops in at B and walks downstream to you and starts fishing up. That's just a form of high holing. Again, that's much more sophisticated than walking around somebody. But it's don't do that. You always check in with another angler, make sure that you're not hopping up above because you're going to ruin somebody's fishing experience.
The one thing that gets tricky is when styles are closer together. Usually they're not super close. But I do know it does happen where, say on the main stretch of timber, there's some styles that are pretty close, like Olstad Bridge. And then, the snowmobile, like most people probably would fish that much. So that's one of those where I guess you just kind of have to use your best judgment. And again, if I see a car and I see people, I'm not going to go in 100 yards in front of them. I don't think that that's cool. So again, if your styles look close, maybe think about it. But normally you're okay to go in at a separate style, I think.
Yep. And again, so whoever Tom in chat said, it's always good conversation, good reminder. That's also good. That's also important to have that conversation. Remind each other as anglers. If you have that situation where somebody comes down and you're coming up, try not to get aggressive. Try not to get angry. There are always other creeks that you can go and fish, or take a break type deal. But have that conversation. Remind them and say, hey, what you did, you may want to think about it this way, or try to find the right way to have a gentle conversation and just say, hey, This isn't how we fish here. We fish friendly here. Have you fished the Driftless before? Where are you from? We fish friendly here. What you did, that's not necessarily how we play in this playground.
And that's really passive aggressive, by the way.
Yeah.
We fish friendly here.
I can see some people taking that the wrong way.
It's Midwest. It's not.
Midwest
It's
nice.
Yeah. Midwest nice. Yeah.
Well, Matt told me everybody fishes friendly here.
Right.
Yeah, I do high haul once in a while, but I only do that when I'm fishing with a friend, and I expect them to turn around and do it again to me. So it's like, hey, I'm gonna take the next 2 holes, or I'll give you the next 2 holes. I'm gonna go up and start like on that 3rd hole, and then they'll fish those next couple of holes, and then they'll come up and find me, and then they'll leapfrog me, and so that way we're each fishing the same water, but we're fishing different spots. So that's kind of a fun way.
I've done that with strangers before. I've really done that with strangers. Said, okay, here, let's just leapfrog around each other. Of course, in my mind, I'm like, okay, so my favorite hole is 4 up. So I'm going to say, because I'm manipulative as hell. But
yeah, that's good. Let's see. Somebody had a question. If you have any advice on how to retrieve your flies, methods, tools,
so
when you break it off and cut your losses.
What's that little grabber? There's a grabber tool. Is it called the grabber?
I think it might be the fly grabber or something like that.
I mean, I do what you're not supposed to do. Well, every once in a while, this chubby girl will climb a tree, or pull a branch down. And that one I know we're not really supposed to do, but I do. Or I turn my rod around. But you might need to buy a new rod after this.
Yeah, sure. Do this. Everybody do this.
I get my reel and I'll try to pull down with my reel. I know you're not supposed to, but I do that. And I get in the water. I get in the water all the time and grab flies.
Yeah, getting in and the stuff from the stream is hopefully easy and obvious. Do it if it's safe. Obviously, don't put yourself in an unsafe situation there. And it's tree limbs, tree branches. If you can get that limb down and not cause severe damage to the tree, by all means, it's better to get the fly out and maybe break an 1/8 of an inch off of a tip of a tree than it is to leave it up there for a bird to eat or something. So it's kind of a tricky question. There are no tips or tricks to it. It's not easy to do. Learning some wiggle retrieves and trying to roll cast it stuff, if it's a solid object, things like that. But if it's stuck in there, there's no great way to do it, quite honestly. There's even all the gadgets and gizmos, they don't work really well. Please don't carry pruning shears or a handsaw with you and cut stuff down. That's not good. We have a client who does that, and we try to encourage that client not to do that. So, but yeah, there are no fails, no easy ways to get flies, especially out of trees overhead. The thing that I'll do is I'll get directly underneath and pull straight down, and sometimes that works as opposed to pulling at you. But there's no cure-all for getting stuff out of trees, unfortunately.
I think the idea is just do your best. Try to not be like, I'll get it. I mean, these are coming from fly shop owners. Like, I want on some level, I want you to go, I'll go get more. But truly, I would far prefer you don't leave them in a tree and have a bird get them.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been trying to get better at it too. My casting sucks. I always drop my back cast, and as soon as the brush behind me gets up, but I've been getting better. So what I used to do is, you get stuck and then you give it 3 pulls and it usually pops out, right? But you do that, and every 3rd time, like, you lose your fly. So I've been getting better. As soon as I feel it behind me, just stop, turn around, go get the fly out, come back to my spot, reset. That's kind of something that I've been focusing on myself, is just trying to be a better angler out there and have a better time during the day. But let's see what we got here. Lots of folks said, like, thank you for, I don't know if you guys are looking at the chat too, but lots of folks were excited that you came on and had this very discussion. It's good things to be talking about. This is an interesting one, all very good information. 3 weeks ago, I walked downstream from a bridge as first person there, and fishing my way back upstream, found a guide and 2 clients had high-holed me. Ooh.
Was it me?
Cool,
It was her.
It was Jerry, wasn't it? Oh boy.
Well, no, because the guy got in below me. But
so here's one of those things where we need the little things on the dashboard, right?
So
Downstream,
explain it
upstream.
again. Parked at a bridge,
walk downstream and fishing back up.
And where did the guide get in? Did it say?
It doesn't. He was just on his way back up, and he,
Oh,
on his way back up between himself and his car and the bridge.
Oh,
There was
yeah.
somebody else that snuck in and started fishing there, which is
that it's seen the car too. I mean, right? It must have seen the car.
Yeah, I would think so. I would hope so.
Yeah. So that's not cool.
That's not cool. We'll just leave it at that. Like, I don't think.
I mean, so here's a tricky one too, and not to say, like the only thing I would, if it were one of our guides, the only thing I would hope is that they would have not seen the car and had gone in either below or somewhere. I can't imagine any of our guides would have done that on purpose. I cannot in any circumstances imagine that. But I mean, it doesn't change the fact that it's still not cool. It's still having a conversation or calling the shop. I mean, I think it's okay if you think it's one of our guides, call the shop. Or if it was me, call the shop.
I don't think anybody was blaming your particular.
It doesn't matter.
No, I don't think that either. I just mean for us to have, like, again, some open conversation.
Yeah.
I think it's okay.
Regardless if it was a guide or just a couple other people out there fishing, it's still not.
Guiding.
Cool. It kind of sucks. So, but those are the types of situations that we're trying to have these conversations and be better anglers and avoid in the future. So, everybody's been there at some point or another, and we're just trying to get better. So, this is an interesting one here. Something we often forget: respect your elders, as some have limitations and need to, fish a little closer to the access points. And that's one thing that, especially now that we get folks we're going to open up to bait fishing. If you do see a car and somebody's at the bridge, it doesn't hurt to ask, like, where they're going to fish, how far up you're going to walk. Can I start 100 yards up and go fish upstream? And a lot of times they're just fishing that bridge hole or the next couple of pools and they're done. So it doesn't hurt to stop and ask.
Especially with conventional anglers, is 90% of the time I just want to fish this hole, and maybe the next one up, you go ahead and have fun type deal. But yeah, for people who are mobility limited or elderly or can't get around, that's that simple. Because they can't get around, they're going to be close to the vehicle or the access point. You walk up without disturbing their fishing. Hi, my name's so-and-so. How are you doing? How's the fishing? Is it okay? Where are you planning on fishing? Can I go downstream? It's that simple conversation there.
And I do think, again, like, it is, I think, simply just better etiquette to ask if I can fish below you. I mean, anytime we're asking to fish above, knowing somebody is going to, and don't get me wrong, I mean, but I will fish the hell out of a hole. I mean, I will put every fly, so why would you want to fish behind me? I get that. So that's, maybe that's what everybody's thinking. But at the same time, I don't want to, have to fish. So I got there first. I planned on fishing this whole section, and somebody who's just going to go up 2 holes in front of me, they're going to shut me down. They're going to shut down my fishing. So it is better to say, you mind if I fish behind you, rather than, can I fish above you? It just is.
Yeah, that's a good thing to think about too. Direction matters, right? A lot. Yeah. Awesome. Well, one more good idea to avoid a fenced-in cattle field. One lone beast that might be a bull. Do you guys have any bull stories?
Oh, a lot.
She's had more encounters than I have.
Gosh. Oh, maybe it's just not being as familiar with the anatomy. I don't know. I feel like I kind of have an idea, but
it's kind of obvious.
Yeah. In the early days, I think it was with the women's clinic, I had a woman with me, and there was like a teenager, like a young guy. And I think he'd been kind of, I don't know if he had the rubber band, which I imagine would make anybody unhappy. But, and he just kept, like, we were in the water, walked down, and he just kept stomping. And I'm like, shoot, trying to get him away. We're in the water, physically in the water, cliff on, or like, steep, like rock on one side, and then ladies on the other, and you're never supposed to cross. So I don't know what I was thinking. And I picked up a rock, and I didn't throw it at him, but I just threw it like in front of him to think like he'd startle. And it did not work well. Like just bellied up to the water. And we were backing away and falling, and it like waited forever. Eventually left that one, and then was chased across water, which I never thought happened, by a Holstein. And I didn't think they had boys. I thought they did it all like artificially. So I really didn't know that there were bulls, like actual bulls, dairy cow bulls. And there are. And they're mean as hell. So yes, I have been chased, running, hopped over barbed wire, ripped by G3, waiting, damn. Yeah, it happens.
The locals will say that the black and white cows are the worst. They're the meanest, they're the most ornery bulls and actual cows. So your pristine black and white spotted cows, don't go near them.
Especially with babies too. I'm sure these are rookie stories. Anybody who's been around them, probably like,
I don't farm, I own a fly shop.
Right.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Well, we're approaching I guess we're after the 9 o'clock hour. It's been an hour. And I just want to thank you guys again for coming on. Two of my favorite people in the world. And I wish I got to spend more time out where you're at, and I treasure all my trips out to Viroqua, and I need to stop in at the fly shop more often. You guys got a website though, right? If people can't make it to the shop?
Sure.
Yes, we do. Driftlessangler.com with a daily updated fishing report, web shopping, and all kinds of other information.
Awesome. That's so great. Thanks again for having us on, or coming on and being with us. And thanks everybody for joining us tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you think about being, a better angler this year, and really it's more so about, like, we all know this stuff. It's a lot of it's common sense, but folks who are new to the sport, it's really important to have these conversations with them, because there's so much, they're inundated with so much already, just trying to actually cast the fly rod, or spin fish, or however you're fishing for them, like trout are tricky, and trying to figure that out is a puzzle that you're trying to solve. And so, the more that people can be talking about this etiquette thing, the better off we're all going to be, and the better experiences we're all going to have out in the streams. So thanks again for talking about a tricky subject. It is May the 4th. I'm going to send us out on a high note, I think. I'm going to see if this will work. I hope.
And thank you everybody for coming tonight. Appreciate it.
That's awesome. Yay!